Hi everyone, it's Lorene from Creation Crochet, where beautiful is easy. And today I'd like to talk to you about getting gauge for your Sea Isle Tunic pattern. We're going to be starting the crochet along tomorrow, and I wanted to go over a couple things. People have been asking me a lot of questions about different fibers to choose or different yarn thicknesses, so I just wanted to go over that. First, I want to briefly go over what gauge is. So gauge is what you're going to use to determine that your stitches are the same tension as my stitches. So you want to make sure that your finished item of clothing actually fits you. So you need it to actually be the size that it says it's going to be. Now, when you measure for gauge, there are a couple things to keep in mind. One, you don't want to measure any outside stitches or top or bottom rows because they measure a little bit differently and are going to affect your gauge. So you're going to want to make your gauge swatch bigger than what it actually calls for. So if your gauge swatch, or your gauge says it needs to have 14 stitches and 4 inches, you're going to want to make your gauge swatch at least 5 to 6 inches. And you're probably going to want to do 2 or 3 stitches on either side more than what the pattern calls for. So this pattern says you need to have 14 stitches and 4 inches. So you're going to want to do your gauge swatch to about 20 stitches so that you can measure inside. I'm going to show you what I mean. This is my gauge swatch. So this is bigger than 4 inches. 4 inches is about approximately that much. So in my gauge swatch, I have 14 stitches per 4 inches. Now that means that whatever size I'm going to make my tunic, it's going to match the schematic and the sizes for that size. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. This is worsted weight yarn. I got gauged. I have 14 stitches per 4 inches in this swatch. However, it's really thick. It doesn't have a lot of movement. You can see the openness in the stitches here, and it's going to probably open up a little bit more when that gets blocked. And this, there's no openness. It's going to be a totally different sweater. It's not going to lay the same. It's going to be thicker. It's not going to probably fit real well because it's going to be bulky. So gauge is the most important thing, but it's not the only thing. You want to make sure your fiber that you choose isn't too far off. So like I said, this is a sport weight yarn. And another thing, commercial sport weight yarns are different than a hand spun sport weight yarn. So this is yarn from Oink Pigments. It's also a sport weight. I got gauge, but I had to go up a full hook size. So the gauge swatch using the material that this pattern calls for, it's the Knit Picks Shine. It uses a 5.0 millimeter hook, and this is the gauge swatch. For the worsted weight that I used, I had to use a 3.75 millimeter hook to get gauge. And like I said, this isn't really a good option. It's going to give you a completely different look. I would not recommend using a worsted weight yarn at all, especially not an acrylic one. And this is a hand spun sport weight yarn from Oink Pigments. So this is a little bit thinner. So I had to use a 6.0 millimeter hook to get gauge. It's still fine. It's still open. It might be a little bit more open than the Shine Sport, but it's close enough. I mean, you can see there's not a huge difference in that, so that's good. So that gives us the different yarn weights. Now we also need to talk about content of fiber. As I said, you probably don't want to use a worsted weight yarn for this. I'm sorry, you don't want to use an acrylic yarn for this because it's going to be hot. It's going to be right against your skin. Acrylic doesn't breathe. It's basically made from plastic. So it's not the best material to make a garment with. You can, but it's not going to have the same drape and flow as a natural fiber. So the fiber I chose is mostly cotton. Though any cotton blend would probably work. I don't think I would use a straight cotton. It's doesn't have as much give or flexibility in it. But as I said, you can feel free to use whatever you want. I do recommend the Shine Sport from Knit Picks because it is going to give you the exact results of what I had. It's an affordable yarn. It comes in a lot of great colors. So I definitely would give that a try. But feel free to use whatever you'd like. Now, if you have any further questions, please feel free to tag me in this post or any post in the group, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. The pattern will be released tomorrow, which is the 4th of November, and it's going to be released around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'll see you then.